Hey guys, it's Tyler from the Painter Chronicles. That's the name I'm going with now. I unfortunately couldn't catch up with Dan in person this week, mostly because I'm actually finishing my degree at uni. So, great idea, I thought, starting a podcast just as I'm finishing up all of that. So, I'm in the middle of some pretty hefty stuff, but I did manage to sit down and have a chat with him. We got an audio session in. We did record the video, but I'm not happy with it, and I'd rather just release it as a audio version rather than subject you to my terrible internet connection. So sorry about the lack in quality. I promise I will do my best to make sure it doesn't happen again, and enjoy the episode.
So hold on. We need a cold open, and you said you had a bread related pun. So whenever
Yes, I did.
whenever you're ready.
Well, I mean, look, I was looking through them. I was trying to find one, and really, nothing arose to the occasion. So,
I can't believe that's our cold open. That's how we start this.
yep, 100%. Hey, look,
Starting off on the right foot.
there's only one way to go, and that's up, right?
I'm keeping all of this in. Hi guys, and welcome back to Advisors Painting. I haven't actually thought of a title yet, so I need to think of that.
That's fine.
But yeah, because you're actually the reason it's not called Experts Advice or something, because you didn't want it. Sorry, I should introduce my guest. I'm here today with Daniel. He is one of the admins of the West Oz Miniature Painters. Are you guys a society or just a group or?
Just a group. Here from now on, we'll refer to us as Wompers or Womps.
Wompers.
Just shorten it down.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Nah, I'm here for it. All right. That's cool. Yeah, so we're here with you because you are, as I've been told and as I've seen in the WOMP Discord, one of the best painters in Perth. I'll say that. I know you probably won't agree.
I'll settle for top 10.
Okay. All right. No, I like it. A little bit of a humble brag. I'm here for it. All right. So.
Settle in, everyone.
Settle in.
There's a lot more coming ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So, yes, you are, one of the best top 10 painters.
Top 10. Yes.
And so, we've got a format, obviously, with how we ask these questions. So let's just dive right in.
Yeah.
So, Daniel, what's your history with painting, man?
I'm glad you asked. So it's, I think my history with painting is obviously linked with my history in the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And I think almost there's a lot, this story is going to sound very similar to a majority of people's hobby stories. So I started when I was a lot younger. Back when Games Workshop released their first Lord of the Rings kit. Can't even remember what it was called. I think it was like Mines of Moria or something, where you got the Fellowship and then a whole bunch of goblins.
That wasn't the first one, was it? I thought the first one was...
I think it was.
Was it? Okay. Oh, they did a re-release of it. That's right.
Sure.
Yeah, no. You're right.
Yeah, they've done a few re-releases.
Yeah.
And I think that was released back in 2001. And I think that was the start mainly of my hobby journey.
Yep.
And then obviously stuff happened such as, school, uni, life and whatnot. So I was going through hobby, maybe like I'd be hobbying for a year, then I'd stop, then I'd be hobbying for maybe 2 years, then I'd have a 2-year break, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the painting aspect kind of kicked in, I want to say around the start of 2018. It was about 2-3 years ago. And that's kind of when I took painting, I don't want to say necessarily a little bit more seriously, but I was painting a lot more consciously.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just, slap paint on a model to get it onto a tabletop to play a game. It was more so I want to see how good I can paint something and then improve on the areas that I fall short on.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, then after that, some stuff happened. I was contacted by one of the older members of WOMP admin team asking to help out with the group.
Right. So how long have you been part of WOMP?
I want to say it's closing up to maybe 2.5, 3 years, I think.
Yeah, right.
So actually, 2017 may have been when I started properly painting. I'm pretty sure everyone's missing like a big year in the recent history where stuff kind of just happened and people blinked.
For sure.
Yeah.
You're like, I've been doing this for like 4 years, and then you think about it properly, and you're like, oh, actually, that's closer to 6 now.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think then I jumped on as admin for the WOMP, and I think it's kind of to be honest, my painting's kind of stagnated in the past year or so because I've kind of fell in love again with the gaming aspect of the hobby.
Yeah, nice.
So I haven't necessarily been painting to a competition standard or a display level standard for a little bit, but I'm getting that itch again. So I want to paint something up nice.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So that's more or less the painting journey as of recording.
Yeah.
And I think we were having a little bit of conversation earlier, and this kind of ties into the best or top 10, where we were talking about it. I was like, well, I don't necessarily see anyone as a better painter as someone else.
Yeah.
We're all on a different stride on our painting journey.
Okay.
So I'm kind of jumping back onto that journey after having a little foray on the tabletop.
Fantastic.
So
we normally do, like in the podcast and stuff, we do like a hobby update. So what's the latest thing you've been working on?
I've actually been working on smashing out a whole bunch of Eldar tanks for my armies on parade. But I think I need to put them aside a little bit for my Iron Signet entry, which I'm going to, as guest, I'm going to flaunt this now.
Yep.
Tyler's going to put a picture up of what I've been working on.
Yep. I definitely will do that.
There you go. So my Iron Signet entry is going to be a cat who's going to be sitting in front of a fireplace.
Oof, it's so good.
There's a little secret gem that I'm going to withhold so people can see it once I've finished it and once it's entered into Iron Signet. But I've got a pretty cool idea about it. And the cat that I'm painting is actually going to be painted directly to represent my cat that I have in real life, Digby, which is also inspired by a video by John Ninas, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name, where he painted his doggo that sadly passed, and definitely made me cry when I watched that video.
Yeah, you sent it to me, and I was like, far out, man. I said to you, I was reserving time to sit down and watch this thing and then have a cry, and boy, it delivered. It absolutely delivered.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really big. Like it's I think what you're doing is really cool. I really, really vibe with this project.
Yeah, and it's one of those things of like, I watched it, and I sobbed like a child, which is fine. And I was like, that's such a great idea. It's such a great project. And I was thinking to myself, well, I don't have to wait until my kitty cat goes. Like, I can just do it now and kind of still pay homage to him.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the plan for that project. But yeah, I think it'll be something a little bit different. Like, I mean, you see all these different models, all these different companies. There's this big, massive orc. He's all like bulgy and huge. Or like, you've got this elf assassin who's like running around. I'm like, no, I'm going to enter a kitty cat.
I love it.
Why not?
Yeah, because there's no restrictions on what you can enter into the competition, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So he'll be my kitty cat will be competing against orcs, World War II planes and tanks.
God, I hope it wins. Like, that'd be so good.
Well, I mean, I'm painting him up, not necessarily to win, but kind of more just to be like, hey, here's like, and this is also kind of circles back to the hobby journey, and everyone's on their different stride. This is a complete step off the path to like proper display painting, but I'm still going to like push it as hard as I
For
can.
sure, definitely.
But yeah, I think it, like, even just talking about it makes me anxious to get behind the brush and start painting them a little bit more.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's actually why I do
yeah.
this podcast and why I want to do it like once a week, because as soon as I finish this, as soon as I hit stop, I'm like, all right, need to get back to the table. Let's go. Let's do this. Like it's actually quite good in regards to getting that kind of creativity and everything flowing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But well, let's keep going. What's your favorite model you've ever painted and why?
Okay. So the favorite model I've ever painted and why is the one that I haven't painted yet, because I haven't painted it yet. So there's a fresh journey ahead.
What? That's not what.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah. Well, you asked. I told you earlier that you're asking hard questions. I'm going to give you hard answers.
That's a cop out. That's not an answer.
It is. However, I knew you were going to say that, so I did choose a few models.
I do appreciate
really-
the kind of philosophy behind that answer, though.
I try. So I don't necessarily have one favorite miniature that I've painted. I'd have to choose 3, and I think the 3 that I would choose would be my Gotrek, my Tidecaster, and my Eldrad.
Yeah, right. I'll chuck photos.
I think
up.
only 2.
I'll need photos. From you,
Yeah, I think
but I'll
only
chuck
2
photos
of them
up
are
for
up
people.
on my social. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'll send you some photos, and Tyler will pop them up now. And I don't know. I can't really choose between the 3 of them which one's my favorite, because I feel like all of them I've learnt something from.
Yeah, right. What did you learn from each one?
It's just more so. That's a great question. I think so. With Gotrek, I learned how to push myself a little bit more, and he was kind of the first real test of trying to do non-metallic metals. So with doing that, it's not necessarily it's like, oh yeah, I definitely nailed the non-metallics on that. It was more so it's like, oh, okay, I tried it, and looking back at it now, this is how it works. This is how it doesn't work.
Yeah, nice.
So I think the gold on him is quite well done. The silver on the axes and the shoulder pads is not as fantastic as I would like it. The Tidecaster was a bit more of a trying to get some colors to harmonize, but also sing a little bit. And the cape, Jesus Christ, that cape is just. Oh, I think there's a few too many layers of blue on that cape, because I kept going too dark, too light, too dark, too light, to the point where I went, okay, I just need to stop somewhere and continue on with the rest of the miniature.
Yeah, it sounds like the same problem. We talked about it. I've talked about it with Gorchin in the past, where like you're sitting there, you've got it under the light, it's like 2 centimeters from your face, and you're like, oh my God, there's like so many color variations, it's just not right. And then you like literally just pull it back like a meter, and all of a sudden you're sitting there, you're like, actually, you know what, it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I think from Eldrad, I dabbled a little bit in fluoro paints on him.
Ooh.
I didn't do as much as I'd like to, but there's certain bits on the fluoros that it's mainly the green around the back of his head, and I think on his eye lenses.
Yeah, right.
And there's something funky with fluoro colors where they give off more light than they absorb.
Yeah.
Because of science.
Right. I'd get you to explain it, but it sounds like
I can explain it incredibly poorly.
Give me like an explain like I'm 5 kind of, if you can.
So basically, from what my limited research has told me on fluorocolors is fluorocolors also pick up, I think, either ultraviolet or I think it's ultraviolet light, which our human eye can't see.
Yeah.
But because this energy is still going into the fluorocolors, it's bouncing the energy back but on a wavelength that we can detect with our human eyes.
Right.
So if say 100% of light is shining onto the color, it's bouncing back something like 110% because it's translating those different wavelengths into wavelengths that we can see.
It must be UV light, because that's like when you like go to laser tag or whatever, where they've got all the UV lights and like all the fluorescent colors you're wearing or whatever just seem to pop. So I'm pretty sure it's UV.
Yeah, I think it might be UV. Yeah.
The reason that I ask, and I might pick your brain a little bit more about this, I actually picked up a fluorescent pink recently that I was like, I'm going to use this, because I've been waiting here in Australia. It's a bit harder to get kind of hold of some product, and so I've been waiting for this. It's a Vallejo model color, but I've been waiting for this for like a year. Ooh,
is it this one?
No, that's a mecha color. This is a model color. I'm holding up to the camera now.
Okay.
Yeah.
The mecha color.
Yeah.
Not good with brush.
Not good with brush.
Good with airbrush, but multiple thin coats.
Yeah.
Not so great with brush.
Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of same principle comes along, where it just pops a lot more vibrantly than other colors and other paints.
What I found, because I did a test on some Chaos Warriors, and for most of the models I used white as the highest highlight, because pink into white's a really nice transition. But for one of them, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try the fluorescent out as my highest highlight, and just because it's technically quote unquote brighter than the white doesn't mean that it's actually quote unquote the lightest color. Like I found that it doesn't quite work out for me. I'm not technically minded enough with this product to understand why that's the case. But like, it's like it looks cool, but it feels unfinished because it doesn't have that white on top. Yeah. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about, or am I just?
I know exactly what you're talking about. I think when you're adding the white, it's desaturating the color, so you're not getting the vibrancy of the pink that you're necessarily looking for. And I'm going to assume it's coming out a little bit chalky as well. It's just necessarily the nature of white paint. White paint can be very chalky and grainy. It's just to do with the pigments. You might get away with some nice whites from time to time, and if you or any of the listeners or watchers have a white manufacturer that you like, stick with them.
Yeah.
Because it can be difficult to find a white that gives you the correct coverage that you need.
I've heard white and yellow are some of the two hardest colors to work with. And who was I talking to? It was one of the WOMP guys did a class for us. I think it might have been James. He said, never work with black. You don't want just black, right? So you work like grays and whites and stuff rather than using straight black, because it just it's too hard to work with, I think is what he said. Shows you how much I was paying attention. Yeah.
No, I'm sure you're paying perfectly fine attention. It's just the memory retention.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. Black's an interesting one. I'm probably gonna touch on this a little bit in some of the other questions, but it's one of those things of where this is actually a really good story. So I've got a mate who was painting Emperor Palpatine, and he was asking me questions like, how do I highlight this black? And he was showing me images of the actual Emperor Palpatine, like from the Star Wars movies. And he's like, I just don't know how to paint this. I'm like, because you're trying to paint a 1-to-1 person on a like 25 millimeter figure. What we're doing, light doesn't necessarily work the same in both aspects. Like the amount of variation and gradients that you'll get from an actor compared to a miniature are going to be completely different. So it's very much one of those things of when you are working on a miniature form, you literally have to fake it to make it. Like you have to fake those edge highlights, you have to fake those blends, because just what you have to do.
Yeah.
We're working on a different scale, and light's working slightly differently.
That's what Gorgon was trying to tell me before, but I don't know, the way you're saying it now seems to be clicking more. Maybe I just need to be told multiple times. That sounds like a thing.
Maybe,
but like
maybe
it's that whole thing. We were looking at the light in the last episode, and he was like, see how it kind of fades in. Well, you've got to do that at a 1/56th scale, so you've got to scale everything down 56 times or something, because we're working on a completely different scale to real life.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's and it's you'll appreciate this. It shows you how much I know about film and acting.
Ooh.
So I think I was listening to a Hugh Jackman interview, and he was asked, do you prefer acting in movies or do you prefer acting in Broadway? He said, well, they're two completely different forms of acting. Acting in film, you can have these kind of slow, subtle changes and facial expressions because the camera's right there on the actor's face. However, he was saying on Broadway, you have to project those emotions a lot more.
For sure.
So almost think of it like miniature painting is Broadway, where we have to project those emotions, we have to project those colors a lot more, and real life is film.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there you go. I'm trying to speak your
language. I love that. That's awesome. I hope that helps other people. Like that helps me understand it a bit better, but I hope that also helps others. Who knows? Maybe there's some other actor painters out there like myself.
I'm sure there is.
So you've told us what your favorite miniatures are, given us some awesome stories and life advice. Well, painting advice, I guess. But
I'm trying.
what's your biggest aha moment? No, what's the moment?
My biggest aha moment.
Do you understand that question? Because I don't know how else to phrase it. Like, but when I say it, I feel like a dickhead.
That's right. I think I understand it, and I'm going to answer it. And if I answer it incorrectly, or if the way that you weren't intending, feel free to rephrase the question and ask it again.
That's all right.
So I think my biggest aha moment was taking a step away from the Games Workshop method, and I'm almost sure that at least 80 to 90% of the listeners or watchers of this show are going to be like, yeah, okay, I know the Games Workshop method. For the 10 to 20% that don't know, it's spray black, use a base coat, I think that's a wash, and then an edge highlight or something along those lines. And I think my biggest aha moment was going, cool, don't spray black because black is way too dark. Also, the Games Workshop method is starting from black and working all your way up to the lighter colors. I think it was there was an Adepticon interview with a whole bunch of different painters, and one of the painters was like, don't start with black, start with grey, because then no matter what model you're painting, you can either dip. It's easier to dip into the blacks, and it's also easier to dip into the lighter colors. So I think that's kind of helped a lot, and I feel like I've been painting a little bit better, and then I feel like I've almost completely reversed my method of painting from the GW system. So I prefer now to work from a lighter color down into the blacks, and then kind of try and bounce them up a little bit. So for example, if I was painting your Chaos cloaks, I would go, sweet, we're going to go with the black. Not black, we're going to go with the grey. We're going to work our way up to some highlights, and then I'm going to start pulling stuff down with glazes and getting some shadows into the crevices.
So with the
and then I might do
with the grey. Do you still? Hey, here's a better question: are you a Xenophil highlighter? Do you subscribe to the Xenophil highlight theory? If so, how does that work with a grey as a base?
Yes and no. So I started doing Xenophil highlighting when I took painting a little bit more seriously. And I've actually Xenophiled my kitty cat as well. For me, Xenophiling, it can be... It's a bit of a two-edged sword. Some people swear by it. Some people don't really see the point. It really does depend on every single person. So it kind of circles back to our fake it till you make it point. So when you first get a model, and you build it, you put it all together, it's all completely grey plastic, or it's a green plastic because it's whatever coloured sprue that they use. Yep. It's all kind of washed away. All the detail is washed away in that one colour. If you do a Xenophil, depending on how you do it and depending on the model, it can bring out detail that you haven't seen before, or detail that you haven't seen because it's been depicted differently on the box art or any sort of variation. So I think Xenophil highlighting is a technique that can be used to go from not necessarily a beginner painter, but it can help a beginner painter expedite their journey on their painting path.
Yeah.
To kind of pick out the details, see where they are. However, on the same notion, I have my Eldar models. I spray them grey. I don't do Xenophil, and then they go straight into a blue. And the paint that I use is too thick to benefit from the Xenophil highlighting to so basically one of the reasons why is the Xenophil highlighting works really well if you start glazing or you start using something like contrast paints where it starts to tint that grey and you get those gradients automatically into the model.
Right.
So I think this goes a little bit further into one of the other question. I think the next question even, it's almost at the start of your painting process, you kind of have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of this model? Is this model going to be, for me, it's either going to be played with or it's going to be a display miniature.
Yeah.
If it's going to be played with, I don't really care too much about Xenophil highlighting because you're not looking at something, 30 centimeters away from your face. You're looking at something maybe a meter away.
Yeah.
And you're not really going to see the smooth, awesome transitions on, the underarm from a Space Marine who's holding a bolter to his cheek or something.
Yeah.
You're just like, yeah, cool, that Space Marine's dead. However, if it is a display miniature, then it will matter because people will be looking at that stuff and it will be noticed. So I think Xenophiling also gives you an idea to pick out the details, where the details should go, where the lights should go, and things along those lines. If you did want to use Xenophiling to kind of map out how you wanted to paint a display miniature, there's one really good tip from Vince Venturella, and if that's a new name to you, I highly recommend going and checking him out on YouTube. He's got a massive backlog of how to paint videos and stuff like that. I'll get Tyler to link it in the description.
I need a link because I will definitely be checking that out. What, Vince Ventrello?
Vince Venturella.
All right. I'll get you to send me a link.
Yeah, no, for sure. And he is massively undersubscribed, but he does I think 10, 15, 20 minute videos cool. Here's the color blue. This is everything you need to know about the color blue. Next video.
Ooh, does he do
Here's
one
the color
pink?
red. Yeah, I sent it to you already.
Oh, that's him. Okay, cool.
That's him.
Cool. Yeah, no, I like him. Okay, I have a link for everyone at home. That's fantastic. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't make that connection. All right. Anyway.
That's right. So the one tip that he does have is when you are Xenophil highlighting, if you're doing it for a display miniature, put the I wonder if this will work actually. Put the Xenophiling on one half of the model to get a little bit more of a dynamic look on it, because having both sides lit up doesn't. As much as the human mind loves symmetry, it loves asymmetrical things just that tiny little bit more.
Right. Okay.
I think there's a thing where if you put a mirror up down the middle of your face and you see literally a mirror image of your face, it just looks super weird.
Yeah.
So having kind of I don't want to say deformities.
Yeah.
It's
Abnormalities.
a bit too strong. Having something that breaks the symmetry of a face, or having something that breaks the symmetry of a model, is more appeasing to the eye than it is of having something completely symmetrical.
For sure.
At least to the human eye.
Yeah.
And when you do have here's another movie thing for you.
Yes.
When you do have something that is too perfect, you get into the Uncanny Valley effect.
Yes, Uncanny Valley.
I'll let you take over for a minute and explain Uncanny Valley.
Yeah. So Uncanny Valley is this cool thing where, like, you're able to suspend your disbelief for a while, right? So you have like old monsters like Alien and things like that, and you watch that and you know it's fake, but you kind of still feel scared because it's like it's different enough from human that you're like, whoa, okay, that's interesting. And then you hit this valley, and it's like if it was a graph, you hit this kind of percentage of closeness to human, and there's this massive gulf where within that range we as human beings feel wrong. Like it feels wrong looking at it, and the range for that constantly changes as we as human beings and our experiences they evolve. Like if you look at old CGI for de-aging, for example, is really interesting. Like we look at stuff that won Academy Awards. What was it? The Gentleman, the one that came out on Netflix. Really good de-aging.
I'm not sure, man. That this is your film.
Yeah, no, I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, basically what happens in that is that we watched that the first time and everyone around the world went, wow, that's so amazing, that's so cool. But you watch it now and you watch some of the Star Wars like recreations of faces, and at the time most people went, yeah, okay, that's fine. But now we're starting to get to a point with that where that's getting into the Uncanny Valley, where you watch it and you're like, something's not right. It's that quote unquote uncanny feeling, but we still believe things that aren't in that valley, because if you go back the other way, like Thanos, for example, is so different from human, but they did a really good job with the CGI that you watch it and you don't go, that's fake, that's not real. Like your brain is fine with it being not, because it's not so close to human. Anyway,
Yeah.
Wrong podcast to talk about all that. But I freaking love all of that. But yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. In regards to it being on a miniature as well. Like, you don't want something that's perfect, and that's something that I find really interesting as well about old sculpts. I watched who was it? Who did the video recently? Was it Miniac or Midwinter Minis? He painted the very first ever Terminator model.
Right, okay, yeah.
And the model is almost symmetrical. And
Yeah.
I was watching it and I don't like the model. And I was like, oh, it's just because it's old. And then I was thinking about it, and then I also thought about like Mech Warriors and Battletech, and a lot of those mechs, they're like perfect symmetry.
Yep.
And when I see them painted to, a top standard by like some Wompers or some really good painters within our community, I look at it and I still go, it just doesn't do it for me. And I think it is that Uncanny Valley effect, because they just do everything the same on both sides, like from the miniature and then the paint job as well. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm even looking at my Eldrad model now, and if I'm looking just at his face is perfectly symmetrical.
Yeah.
But the only thing that's pushing it off symmetry is he's got a gem on his forehead, basically.
Yeah.
And the way that the light's shining, it's shifting the shadow over to one side to give it that unsymmetrical look.
And that like 1/28 scale, that's probably enough, right? Like it doesn't have to be a big...
Yeah, exactly. So it's not necessarily something you should kind of freak out about, because the majority of miniatures do have even like just their pose, like one foot's a little bit forward.
Yeah.
But like with that Terminator, if you could imagine literally just a humanoid figure just standing perfectly symmetrical, it's just going to look weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slightly intimidating too. Just someone stalking you there.
just a lot. So yeah, in a roundabout way, that's my or a few of the biggest aha moments in painting.
Yeah, so it's like the just to summarize for my own benefit, it's moving away from like the GW stance, and also moving away from perfect symmetry.
Yep, and then faking it till you make it as well.
Yeah, faking it till you make it.
What you see in real life, you have to condense into a miniature scale.
Yeah.
almost think of a miniature as a book report on a real thing. You have to condense it and convey your message.
I
in a
hate how
shorter
well
format.
that metaphor works. All right.
There you go.
Yeah. So moving right along, what's your one technique you can pass on to a beginner?
All right. Well, how many did Gorchin give you? He gave you 2, didn't he?
He technically gave me both his Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon technique. Oh, spoilers. And the beginner technique at the same time. So he said, these are my 2 techniques. And then I was like, I only want 1. And he said, well, you're getting 2. I said, that one's too hard. He's like, cool. Well, that's my Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Yeah, that's
All right, cool.
So
All
he
right,
gave
well,
2 because he
I've
answered the question. He answered 2 questions at
Twice.
once. So,
All right,
you do
fair.
you.
Well, all right, cool. You don't have to be anywhere anytime soon, right? Because I'm about to unload.
No, I have cleared my schedule for this.
Fantastic.
This is the learning.
So
I'm here
okay.
for this. Let's go.
So I'm just going to start rattling off a few learnings.
Yep.
I think touching back on a previous topic that I mentioned was just literally always ask you. So if you had to pick one, it would be always ask, what is this miniature for? And also look back at your previously painted miniatures. And when I say look back, don't necessarily pick up the model. Take photos of the model with your phone camera, digital camera, whatever. Literally don't look at them for a day, maybe 2 days, and then go back and just look at the images, because there's going to be and then review your work. So there's going to be some things that you'll see on the images that you might not necessarily see in real life. And there's also this kind of disconnect between having the model in your hands and looking at it and trying to critique your own work compared to having images of your model and trying to critique the images. So the images, you're going to be like, oh, I wish I could really see what's happening, behind his head or under his chin. That's when you can pick up that miniature and go, oh, okay, it looks like, it doesn't look that great. I need to fix it up. At that stage, don't necessarily pick up the brush and start fixing it up. Write almost like a hit list of the things that you need to do. Because if you're looking at the miniature as you're critiquing it, it is so easy to go, oh yeah, no, I need to fix that up, I'll remember. Oh, I need to fix this up, I'll remember. But if you have this disconnect between the miniature and you're just looking at photos and writing down notes, there's less of a temptation of going, I'm still painting, I'm still hobbying, to no, I am reviewing my work.
Okay.
This is the stuff that I need to work on. And then after that, then I would say, go back to the miniature, pick it up, start working through the list. And while you're working through that list, you might find other things like, oh yeah, like it's under his chin, that's really bad. And then also on his elbow or, on her skirt, or, this tank tread doesn't necessarily look exactly like this one over here. I need to kind of fix it up a little bit. So I think it's that technique of looking at your miniature. It's literally through a different set of eyes, because you're looking at it through images instead of looking at the actual miniature.
All right.
So, yeah, I think that's one technique I could pass on to a beginner if
Yeah.
they want to further their...
So basically, just really critique it, but like do it in a detached way.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you so kind of going back to Vince Venturella, he runs a Facebook page called, I think, Painters Motivating Painters. I haven't been on there for a little bit, but what he used to do was an end of month hobby wrap up where he would go through the images that people have posted up on the Facebook page, and he would critique them for him. And I think that's also kind of one of the things of like, if you want critique from someone, it's quite rare to be able to get your hands on someone who can give you incredibly valuable critique.
Yeah.
Majority of the time, you're going to be on a Discord or a Facebook or something like that. You have to take photos. So why not first critique it yourself before you give it out to the world?
Yeah.
Because those things that you pick up, majority of other people will pick up as well. And if you can reduce those items, then the things that people pick up will be or should be more valuable to you, like, adding more contrast or adding some more highlights or, things like that. Or like, the skin looks a bit too pink or whatever it is.
So you would say make a list of what you can see and then say, hey, I've seen these bits. Can anyone give me any further feedback to take it to the next level?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yep. And, obviously there's all those other, I want to say generic techniques, thin your paints, multiple thin coats is better than one thick coat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, I don't got beef with this, but I've got to ask some questions because I, maybe not famously, but I do not, shock horror confession time, I do not do two thin coats.
Cool. This interview's over now.
No, because like I can never seem to get the consistency right. Like it's never two thin coats. It's always four thin coats because I can't get the color. Like I can't build up the color correctly.
That's absolutely fine. Two thin coats it's more of a cautionary tale than an instruction. So instead of going, I need to cover this, black with red, instead of going, it's not thick enough, I need to, do one thick coat of red, you'll literally obstruct any further detail that miniature has. If you say, no, that's fine because it's on a cape, you go, okay, cool. So the paint is going to start to crackle and it's going to give it a texture, yada, 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 yada. So doing multiple thin coats is absolutely fine. I think the two thin coats is basically just like hey, hold up. You don't need to do it in one pass.
Yeah.
You can do it in multiple thin passes.
Yeah, right. Okay, so here's my problem though. I don't want to do 4 thin coats. That's too many, right? Like I get bored. I'm done painting that particular color on that particular model. Like, and that for me is a big reason why I think I have so many unfinished projects, because I'm like, two thin coats. I always remember 2 thin coats. And so I sit there and like my cultists, for example, I talk about them way too much because they just sit there in front of me, just mocking me. But like painting them was a freaking nightmare because all the paints were just so thin, because I was like, make sure these are perfect. So I have to do 2 thin coats. And like I've sat here and I just look at it and I don't want to touch them again just because of how much of a pain it was getting base colors down.
How, out of curiosity, I think I already know the answer to this question. How did you undercoat them or base coat them?
I primed them with black primer.
There we go. So black is incredibly difficult to cover. So if you wanted to, so I'm assuming you did just flesh on the cultists, right? Like on their skin or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could only assume that you'd have to go like from a dark skin up to another layer of skin, up to another higher layer of skin, or a lighter layer of skin, I should say. So instead of going sweet, 2 thin coats, because black is so heavy, you need to kind of get the supporting colors before you go up to something high like a Kislev flesh or an elf flesh.
Okay.
And then that kind of circles back to one of my aha moments of going, GW method can go away. Start with grey, because if you started with the grey, you would remove maybe 2 or 3 layers to get up to that midpoint.
Awesome. Great. I got to go buy more spray paint, apparently.
No, it's just airbrush and the world is your oyster.
Mate, that is on the list. Every man and his dog talks about airbrushes. And
Man, what dogs do you know that can talk? That's incredible.
It's a saying. Don't do this to me.
I think at that stage as well, that's when Xenophil Highlighting can kick in. Because if you're doing something en masse like cultists, you can get the Xenophil on, and hey, guess what? All of a sudden, that pale skin on the top of his arm, that's already at a grey or a white.
Yeah, right.
That's not going to take that many coats of paint. I reckon that will take you 2 coats of Kislev best to cover it, like, and too thin coats as well.
Yeah, right.
So I can completely understand where you're coming from. Like, it takes too long. I don't want to paint a 20-man unit with 4 layers of skin. Like, that's enough to drive anyone insane. So that's kind of when it goes back to use some quick techniques to get stuff painted quickly. If you were doing a cultist for a competition, firstly I go, that is fucking awesome. Paint that cultist to a competition level. I want to see it. But then also I'm painting 1 miniature. I can do the 7 or 8 layers of skin that I need to do, because I'm only doing it once, not over 20 models.
Yeah.
And that's kind of circling back to, what is this model for? It's, if you can paint an army to a display level quality, hands down, that is amazing. I can't. At least not at this stage of my life. But yeah, it's one of those things that if you do slowly start to kind of move away from different methods, like the Games Workshop method.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not trying to throw too much shade on Games Workshop here, but it's also one of those things that if you do find yourself that you are kind of ingrained into a specific painting style, go watch a tutorial that you wouldn't typically paint that way and just follow it. Like, you know, watch the tutorial and go, oh, you know what? Yeah, sweet, cool. I like that. I like how that person's got that result, and I'm going to follow every single one of their steps in order to get to that result. At that situation, you followed someone else's recipe, you followed someone else's technique, and it can be enough to kind of snap you out of a previous method. So it's kind of just giving you a little bit of a wake-up call, and just changing some stuff up and showing you that paints can be used in a different way that you've been using them for such a long time.
Okay, I like that. Like, definitely shaking up what you do is a good idea, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, what are you really learning at that stage? And I think that's I'm gonna throw in another one. That's another technique that I can throw into like a beginner painter.
Go for it.
Don't be too afraid to just kind of dive into a miniature. And
how dare you call me out like that?
No, it's fine. Call out to come later. No, just like, obviously still try as hard as you can. But if you get halfway through a project and it looks ugly and you think you've passed the ugly phase, that's fine. Just keep going. Keep going until the model's finished. There's so many models that I have that are half started or sub-assembled and sprayed and ready to go, and I haven't kicked on with them yet. But it's one of those things, and I mean, I'm a victim of this as well. Like, I've got miniatures that I am terrified to start painting. But it's also one of those things of, they're just miniatures at the end of the day. Unless there's some sort of like big significant reason as to why they're special, they're just miniatures. Just jump in and paint them. What's the worst that's going to happen?
I'm
You're going to stuff it up.
That zone with the Panther at the moment. I don't know how to start or where to start. I just want to do this podcast for like a solid 3 months before I even touch the model after doing assembly.
No. Just start it, jump in. Because realistically, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to have a model, and at worst, it's going to look like garbage. But how many lessons would you have learnt on that model? Like, it's just one of those things of, it's not the final product that matters. It's how you got there that matters, and then the lessons that you've learnt from that, where you can then apply them onto your next piece. So, I mean, you play bolt action, and I can assume almost the majority of listeners are also gamers as well, or people who just paint are also play games to a certain degree. I can almost wager that majority of people will learn more by losing a game than they will by winning a game. And you can kind of take that thought process and apply it to painting miniatures. If you paint something really poorly, you're going to learn and you're going to know why most of the time, why it turned out that way and the things that you should do next time for it not to happen like that again. So yeah, don't be too afraid and just jump in and paint some stuff.
Yeah, no, that's good advice for anyone. But I feel personally called out by that, which is probably
that's fine.
thing.
I might have to try and take a picture of all the stuff that I have that's still on sprue, so you can kind of see that I also suffer from the same fate.
I think I'm gonna have to spend tonight painting my panther.
Yep.
Just get, because it needs to start. I mean, we're just over a month away. Just under. We're just under a month away, and the thing's still in like just plain plastic. So definitely need to get that started.
That's fine. Well, if it makes you feel any better, my kitty cat's only just endlessly primed. I mean, that being said, you've got a panther, I've got a cat.
Yeah.
So there's a slight difference. But they're both felines, I guess. But I'm still looking at my project, and I know that I need to get it done. I think also it probably comes a little bit more with experience, but you can kind of start looking at some miniatures and kind of assessing how long they're going to take you to paint. So, for instance, I paint mostly every night on weeknights for maybe 2 or 3 hours. And that's not necessarily display level painting. It could be army painting or whatever, or even just building the hobby. For some weird reason, I just got this big building bug. It's like, I've got all these models, I'm going to start building them. And I'm looking at the kitty cat, and I'm like, I reckon maybe like 2 or 3 weeks, and I could probably get it done. Because it's not just the kitty cat. There's going to be a little diorama of it as well, like the vignette.
Yeah.
That needs to all be kind of
I'm excited. Are you doing OSL for that? I imagine you are.
Possibly. We'll see. We'll see how we go. You'll know I've run out of time if I don't do the OSL.
Nice. Okay. So that's not...
Yeah.
See, I thought I caught something then, because I thought that might have been your little secret that you're keeping to yourself.
No.
But no. Okay. All right.
No.
Speaking of secret techniques, well...
Yes, my
more
secret
experienced
technique.
Once again, thank you to all the experts who have sat through this chat and just cringed internally at all my stupid questions and all of that. This is for you, those of you who have been in the hobby who want to pick up maybe a new tip or tidbit. What, Dan,
Yes.
if I may.
Of course you may. We're established friends now.
We are, yeah. We're 50 minutes into our friendship at this point.
Hey, man! I think there's been a lot of we've been on a long road together.
Oh, for sure.
Messaging each other.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. What's your Crouching Tiger Hidden Dragon technique?
So I think me personally, I'm just going to put it down to my power swords. I'll shoot some more images over to Tyler. He can pop them up.
I will do that.
But I feel like I've got a bit of a knack on the power swords. And it's almost to the point where I really, really like them. I really enjoy doing them. I don't necessarily want to say it's a cop-out, but whenever I look at miniatures now, I kind of go, oh, cool, where can I do like my power sword effect?
Okay. And what is your power sword effect?
It's literally just glazing. And I think that's kind of why I enjoy it so much. And it's just got the transition from a very bright color down to almost pure black.
Right.
So the Eldrad model goes from a very, very light, almost white purple, and it transitions all the way back down into a black.
So break this down for me, because I have tried this, right? I was working on my custodies. I got really good with my dry brushing of their golden armor. Really, really happy with it. It was looking really nice, real crisp, real clean. And then I touched their power swords, and now I don't want to ever see a custody again, because I couldn't work out a technique that gave me good power swords.
do you want to know how to do really good green power swords? I'll give you a recipe as well.
Yeah, for sure. Just walk us through how you would do it. Like,
How I'll do it?
obviously, it'd be
Alright,
great
too
if we
easy.
could do a tutorial video. Maybe that's something we might do in the future.
I think there might be a workshop coming up for power swords in the not too distant future. I just kind of got to get around to writing it up. But all right, so let's just go for a virtual.
Yeah,
a
give me
virtual
a give me a
tutorial.
verbal instructional guide.
All right, so there's multiple ways of doing power swords. It's mostly just kind of the transitions, and if you start breaking it down, it's mostly just a checkered pattern on a power sword where you have darks and lights. Power swords can have absolutely as many different transitions in them as you want. My personal favorite is literally just having two on either side. So one half is dark, the other half is light, and then a mirror image of that onto the other side.
Right.
So the way I basically do it is I literally just go, I'll have a grey sword to start with.
Yeah. Recurring
and
theme
I'll-
here.
Just a little bit. And then I'll typically put in my darks first, because the darks are easier to put on. Darker colours and darker paints have a lot better coverage than the lighter colours, which I'm sure a majority of people are familiar with. So what I would tend to do is I'll start to put my darks in, and then I'll start to lighten them up, and you can almost start then to get a gradient scale of the color that you wish to do.
Right.
Kind of bringing it back up to almost a complete white. Even though you've got the dark, if you're going to end up with a whole bunch of different kind of streak lines running along the sword,
Yeah.
which is fine. Once you've kind of hit the light point, then I start working my way backwards. So I start working back into the darker colors, and that's where the nature of the darker paints kind of brings it all together, because they're a lot harsher. They can they soften off the transitions between each of the stages, and you get this nice kind of smooth blend and a nice feather through off into the darker colors. And I think the magic kind of really happens when you start going further and further into the darkness, you get this value contrast between the light and the dark, and you can kind of really see the transition of the colors through a single piece.
Right.
And I know how much you didn't like doing all those layers on your cultists.
Look, I didn't like doing them because they were base layers. I understand glazing and I understand washes. Like I'm happy to do that. It's just that I had to
Good.
do base layers, and for whatever reason, my
base layers.
stupid paints were making me do 4.
Start with grey. No, I think the reason why that's my Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is once I learnt that, actually shout out to Dean Lecoq from Games Workshop. He's the one that taught me how to paint the power swords. And I think, funnily enough, that's a little bit of an aha moment as well, where I kind of learnt how to glaze properly, and kind of it's a weird one. There's so many different ways of describing this, which is really weird as well. It's one of the things that kind of doesn't really irk me, but it can be a bit of a hindrance to fresher painters when they're kind of coming into the scene, where you have online tutorials saying, oh, we're going to do a glaze, oh, we need more contrast, or we're going to do a feather, or we're going to do a filter and stuff like that.
Yep.
It almost, sometimes it feels like there's different people use different language in order to describe something. But for me, a glaze is an incredibly small amount of paint applied onto a surface, where you're kind of tinting the surface underneath a little bit. So if you had it's almost like just think of a glaze like you're glazing a turkey.
Okay.
Like that's it. You're not changing the color of the turkey. You're like kind of just glazing the top of it, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So yeah, I think glazing and the thinness of paint, I think that's kind of propelled me forward. a fair bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's good. I like that. I definitely hope we can. Well, I don't hope. I will chuck up the pictures to kind of show off what you mean, because I understand in concept.
Yep.
Like in my head, I guess it makes sense, but I can't quite visualize it. So it'd be good to see your example of it. But I think that's more me than you, in regards to all that.
That's right. Well, I mean, in order to do your so let's say we take a custode's weapon, for example. And the recipe that I'll give to you and any other custodes player that's out there, and we'll keep it simple and we'll keep it just with G'd up paints. So the three or four paints that I'll use to do custode weaponry is I think it's Warpstone Green, which is the contrast paint.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, Warpstone Green is a technical paint.
Is that the fluoro one?
Yeah, it's like a wash.
Okay,
kind of. It's a bit thicker than a wash.
Oh man, if only I had my colors around with me. All right, so no, that's Tesseract Glow. All right, so we're gonna need some Tesseract Glow, which is like the fluory Necron paint. Then we're gonna need the dark green contrast color.
It's like Dark Angels something. I'll get names up in the video. I have it.
Yeah, we'll get the names
somewhere.
up. I'll keep it. I'll try and keep it generic then. So we want the fluoro green. We want the darker green.
Yeah.
We want, I think, Wraithbone, and then a blackish color, like maybe Black Templar or even just Abaddon Black or something.
Yeah.
Start off the sword. I would paint it Wraithbone.
Yes.
Wait for that to dry. Then basically divide the sword. We'll just do one panel, like one side of the blade. Divide the sword in half. One half just gets painted in that darker green.
Yep.
And that's it. Wait for that to dry.
Yeah, okay.
Then what we do is we're going to mix that dark green with a little bit of Wraithbone white, and then we're going to put it into the center third of that paint, or center third of that sword.
On the side that you painted green.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll have 1/3 that's Wraithbone, 1/3 that's 50/50, and then the other third that is pure dark green.
Right.
And then you literally shift it an additional a fifth then?
Yeah.
You go, sweet. So then it's not going to be a 50/50, it's going to be like a 75/25. And then towards the very end, you kind of start going, okay, cool. After the 75/25, you drop that off. And then you do a 50/50 of that glow and Wraithbone. And then that's kind of like where you bleed in between like the lighter colors. And once you've done that, I would then go, sweet. We're going to start working our way back. And then you can kind of start blending the transitions into that dark green. And the very final step, on like the top 6th, top 8th, you do a green and a black mix just to make it really pop.
Right, okay.
If that makes any sense whatsoever.
It does. I see. This is the best thing about this entire thing for me, is that I have to edit this, so I get to listen to this again without having to actively participate in the conversation. So I can just sit here and listen. But so I'm hoping everyone else at home is getting this better than I am, because at the moment I'm like monitoring like several different things and trying to write notes as well. So I try and remember things. But I understand. So we've got you've got your glow color. Like your kind of light glow, a base, quote unquote base color, which you were saying was the dark green, a black or a dark, and then a white or a light color. And so what you'll have is like on the tip, it'll be, for example, white and then glow white 50/50, and then white and dark green 75/25, and then 50/50 white and dark green in the middle, and then the other thing but with the black the other way.
Yeah, more or less. That's about right.
Excellent.
And if you kind of just start glazing, when I start glazing the darks back into it, you can kind of get a little bit more of a control, because that's when like the feathering or the transitions kind of get muddied in the waters, and you get those nice kind of gradients going through that.
All right. I'm
through
keen.
that.
I want to try that out now. I might try that out tonight, just for fun.
Good. I'm glad.
Um,
I might see if I've got some photos kicking about that I might be able to kick your way.
Please, if not, take a photo. We'll check it up. Because I'm sure you have a pretty well lit space that you can take a nice photo of a model with.
Well lit, yes. Whether I can take a nice photo or not, questionable.
Fair enough. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. This has been, once again, as usual with all of these things, so amazing. I did have one question that I think I asked Gorchin, and to be fair, because you want to have a longer interview than Gorchin, I'll ask you too.
Oh, only 2 minutes. We got this. We got this. All right,
what was the moment like? Yes. So you said you painted from 2001 to present, and then also you're saying 2018 to present was when you were with WOMP. But what was like the moment that you? Because obviously 2001, I don't think you started this hobby being like, yes, I want to be one of the best painters. So what was that? What was the moment that you kind of sat there and went, you know what? I'm not just happy with just this one level. I want to really step up my game and kind of join the next level of painters.
I don't necessarily think it was it definitely was not as well thought out as that. I think. So this is literally me shoehorning in an additional technique.
Yep.
It's not even a technique. It's a little bit more of kind of advice.
Yeah. Nice.
So the first model that I really painted and I really wanted to give it a red hot go was I can't even remember the name of the bloody model, but it's a corn dude. He's got a big axe. He's kind of standing on a lump of skulls. I think like not bloodthirster. Anyway, it's one of the
skull crusher.
Dudes. I think so. Maybe a skull crusher. Yeah. He's got like a big axe.
I'll remember and I'll chuck up an image of it. So people know what we're talking
image
about.
pending.
Yep.
Yeah. And I remember I looked at that miniature and so one of my kind of advices for people who want to kind of progress their painting is, even though you don't collect that army, but you think that model's cool as all hell, just get him and paint them. Because I don't have that's a lie. I've got a Chaos Army. I haven't played with it since I was a teenager. I mean, I've got the same Chaos Warriors you're painting. I'm like, hey, square base is nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, mine are literally in the shed, kind of just waiting to be probably turned into statues, to be honest.
Fair enough.
Because they're like easy to paint.
Yeah.
But yeah, I picked up this the Chaos dude, and I was like, I actually really want to paint him well. And I want to, because he has a lot of kind of skin, he's all bulgy and stuff. So like, I want to test some stuff out. And I painted him, and at that stage, I was more or less happy with him. Entered him into a comp. I don't think he even placed, but I was like, you know what? No, like this, I enjoyed the process. I enjoyed sitting down and trying my best. And I think it's also a little bit of a therapeutic thing for me, where after work I come home and I can kind of zone out a bit and concentrate on one thing. And I think it was almost like a slow kind of progression of I enjoy doing like high quality painting. I enjoy delving into specific models from a range that I'd have no interest in playing as an army.
Yeah.
However, I think they just look awesome.
Yeah.
Like for example, like the Tidecaster. I don't have an Ardeneth Deepkin army. I don't think I ever will.
Yeah.
But I mean, I bought it. It was bought as a master's piece. I painted it. I enjoyed it, and it's almost kind of like dipping my toe into that product range. I have a Chaos Sorcerer Lord that's painted up as a Night Lord. I have zero interest in doing up a Night Lord's army. But
smart man.
Again, I've like dipped my toe into that space. But yeah, like so I've got another one that I want to do up, a Goblin Squig Rider. I just have a really cool idea on that model. I have no interest at the moment of painting 120 goblins for an army.
No.
That for a system that I haven't played yet.
God, no.
Properly at least. Something might click and something might go, I really love goblins. They're amazing. I'm going to run out and buy 120 of them and just play them and have fun. But I think it's one of those things of, even though it's a model that you might not necessarily play from that range, don't be afraid to buy it and paint it and do something different, especially if you're following a tutorial for a model that you found online. By all means, go out and buy that Chaos Lord or that Elf or that Panther that you're going to paint pink, and just do something different, do something crazy. It is also another way to kind of step out of your comfort zone, because if all you're doing is painting Space Marines and then all of a sudden you need to paint a dwarf, you're going to be like, what?
What do you mean it's not just all armor?
Exactly. What do you mean they've got biceps? What? What's all this flesh stuff? So yeah, I think just that's kind of where it kind of kicked off, where I was like, no, I'm going to paint this Chaos dude.
Yeah, nice.
And I painted him to the best of my ability. And I think after that it was like a Harlequin model. And then I lose track.
Yeah. No, that's
but
cool.
I think that was kind of like the stepping stone. And one thing led to another, and then all of a sudden, here we are. I'm giving an interview as an advisor.
That's it. Yeah. Advisor Chronicles. That's what I'm calling this. I might have to do another intro, but that's fine.
Well, I mean, you're more than welcome to call it Expert Chronicles featuring Dan. That's all good.
No, because I think I was talking to Gorchin as well, and I was at not just Gorchin, but some of the other WOMP guys and other painters that I want to get on the show, and basically all of them were like, no, we're not, like, I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert. And it's like,
I think on that topic, and I might just start rambling, so you need to cut me off if I start rambling.
That's fine.
I think on that topic, in terms of expert, there's been a couple of painting competitions. I think most notably last year's Iron Cygnet, where I walked away and on my drive home, I turned to my missus and I'm like, there is so much stuff I don't know yet.
Yeah. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a whole bunch of techniques, there's a whole bunch of things that I don't know in this hobby. That's kind of why I don't particularly see myself as an expert.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it's also the thing of like, I know I don't know, but there's also there's also things that I don't know, that I don't know that I don't know, if that makes any sense.
No,
I know that I don't know, and then I don't know that I don't know.
Yeah. But you don't know what you don't know, but you know that you don't know.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know what I don't know, and I know what I don't know, but I know that I don't know.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. anyone who followed along with that,
well done.
Well done.
I have one last question for you. Thank you so much for everything so far, but this is a very selfish question for me. So, something.
How would I go about painting the paper?
Well, I mean, that's a whole episode in itself, and I think that's a journey that I have to go on my own. But
no, well, you're not. You're never on your own. There's always
really
the one there to help you.
I have everyone literally in my corner. Everyone I show this to is like, yeah, well done. It's just me in my own head being like, all by myself.
You're never by yourself, and there's always people on the WOMP Discord if you want someone to chat to.
That's it. I definitely will probably be taking that up tonight. But last question.
Yes.
What colors would you use for like dust and dirt on a pink tank? Because like normally people, use mud or like sand or even snow. I guess like white could work, but like I'm trying to think of what would be the best kind of color combination to work with everything else.
So what you need to do is you need to get yourself one of these.
Ooh, color wheel.
People that are listening, just put out a color wheel. So we're looking at what? Pink, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pinkish, red, violet. That's probably the closest. So if we want to start looking at the actual complementary colors, we're looking at like what? greens, yellows, and maybe some blues.
Mm.
So if I was doing your tank in terms of weathering it up, funnily enough, I'd probably put it somewhere like in a desert.
Okay.
You know, it's a little bit thematic as well in terms of the Pink Panthers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a little bit about history, just a little bit, just enough to get me through a HMG podcast.
Well, you know more than me then.
Damn it. Does that mean I'm the host now? No, I think I'd probably go for like a yellowy dirt. You might also even be able to get away with some greens. The greens. So here's an interesting one. Mm-hmm. It kind of circles back to what is the purpose of this piece? And what is the... I know that you and Gorgon touched on it a little bit. What's the narrative of this piece? Which we can talk about in a moment as well. If you wanted to do a Pink Panther and you want to use green, I would go, cool. It's a wrecked panther out in the forest, and it's overgrown by nature.
Yeah.
And then the reason why I brought the color wheel out is because you want the complementary colors to kind of work off each other. I know that there's a Games Workshop employee, Andrew Horton, and he often talks to people about, like, you know, there's a reason why football teams have specific colours.
Yeah.
Football in the general sense, because I'm not going to go into Australian rules and soccer and yada, yada, yada.
It's the same concept.
Yeah, like there's contrasting colours. It's because they work well with each other, or they work opposing to each other, and then that's where you get the contrast, the harmony, and all that stuff. And actually, it kind of brings me back around to another topic I may have wanted to talk about, but we've missed, and that's of colour theory. So in terms of doing your Pink Panther, I would suggest looking at other forms of visualizations that have a lot of pink in them, and you'll be able to go, okay, that works. I'm not sure why it works, but it works.
Yeah.
And it might be a complementary color, it might be a triad color, or it might be something in between. And I think, I can't remember who I heard it from. I think it might have been Vince Venturella, but it's called color theory because it's not a color science.
Yeah.
There's rules that you can break, change, and mold to suit what you want to do.
Okay.
So, long answer, to be short, probably like a yellowy kind of dirt onto the pink tank.
Okay.
And because, probably like a yellowy green. That's what I would do.
Okay. All right.
If you wanted to tell a story with it as well, and you wanted to incorporate green and the pink, depending if you can get your hands on a model of a person at the right scale, you could probably even paint a panel of the tank green and have it look like he's painting the whole entire thing pink, or he's painting the whole entire thing green. Oh
God, that's good.
Yeah. I'm not sure how historically accurate that is. Probably not at all. But yeah, there's something there for you.
All right. Well, that's given me a lot to think about. I'll definitely have to check out some color theories in regards to what I want. But thank you so much for your time, Dan. Really, really appreciate it. I'm sure
no dramas at all.
I'm sure I'll have you / see you around. There was talks of you coming on as a more experienced host, or a more experienced painter, and help me host this. Maybe when we're talking to some bigger guns. But yeah, I appreciate so much your time, and I can't wait to, because you'll be there, won't you, at Iron Cygnet?
Oh, of course I'll be there. I'm helping run it. I'll be. Nothing's been finalized as yet, but odds are I'll be the man at the front counter, greeting people and telling people where to go and whatnot.
Yeah, cool. Well, then I'll definitely see you then, if not before. But
100%.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. And I was gonna do this. I might as well do it now, considering it's the end of the cast.
Yes.
I'm gonna call out one of the other admins of WOMP.
Do it.
Leif, you're being called out. You need to give Tyler some help, and this is the platform in which you will be doing it on.
Haha, gotcha.
Cool.
No, we'll make sure to at him after this video is out.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. And
no dramas at all.
I'll see you around.
See you, bud.